Welcome to the Empower Elle podcast. I'm your host, Vero, and I'm so excited to have you join me on this journey of empowerment and growth. This podcast is designed for ambitious, high-achieving women who are ready to break free from overwhelm and step into their power. Together, we'll explore practical strategies, share inspiring stories, and hear from experts who can help you navigate the challenges of balancing ambition and well-being. Whether you're looking to cultivate confidence, transform your mindset, enhance your leadership skills, or find harmony in your life, this is the place for you. Let's dive in. And welcome to the Empower Elle podcast. I'm so glad that you're here in episode 1. The Empower Elle podcast will allow you to learn about ways that you could shift the way that you lead and live. But before we get into all of that in later episodes, I want to focus today's conversation on my story, so you can get to know me better and learn about how I got here. So let's take a deep breath and let's dive in. So I had a pretty normal childhood. I grew up with both of my parents still together, and I have an older brother. A fun fact is that my brother and I are born on the same day, 5 years apart. I'm not sure what kind of planning went into that, but I never asked because I don't really want to know. And growing up, I wanted to do everything that my brother was doing. I loved playing mini hockey in the basement or dress up as Ninja Turtles or watch him play video games. I loved sports and music, and I loved to perform and to sing. And I can't actually sing, but I still love it. I was loud as a kid, and I had a big personality, and I wanted to be seen. So when my brother started school, he actually found it very difficult. And my mom spent a lot of time helping him with his homework and trying to get him to understand what he was being taught. Now, I can only imagine how frustrating that must have been for him and for her. And that frustration was really felt sometimes. When I started school, I was lucky enough that it came fairly easy to me. I didn't put in a lot of work, but I really enjoyed it. And I got good grades. I remember my mom telling me at times how thankful she was that I didn't struggle at school. That she didn't know how she would handle both of us needing so much help if that was the case. I was really young at the time, and I didn't really know how to handle or process my emotions. And we didn't really talk about emotions in my household. But I remember having mixed feelings and being confused about those comments. People around me were constantly telling me that I was a good girl and that I needed to be a good girl and that I was the smart one. And to me, being a good girl was the quiet person that didn't speak in school and didn't do anything that they were not supposed to do. So I dimmed my light to be quiet and to fit in the box that people told me that I belonged in. And being the smart one just became my identity. And while that seems like a good thing to tell a kid, it really impacted the rest of my life. So towards the end of high school, when it was time to figure out what I wanted to do after, I knew that I wanted to go to university because at the time I thought that's what smart people do. So my favorite subject in school was math. I was always a numbers girl, and I decided to study accounting. Now let's just take a step back. I still love numbers and I still will say that I'm a numbers girl, but I went from loving sports and music and loving to perform and loving to be free and to be loud to studying accounting. And if we think of a stereotypical accountant, they are none of those things. So I kept going. I went through my bachelor's degree, once again, working hard, getting good grades, but I never stopped and asked myself if I even liked it. Towards the end of my degree, it was time once again to figure out what I was going to do next. And I knew that I wanted to pursue my CPA because once again, I had that same thought of that's what smart people do. So I didn't realize it back then, but I can see clearly now that I was basing my decisions on what I thought I was supposed to do and not on what I wanted. As a young girl, I had taken on the identity of being the good girl and the smart one. And I thought that this was who I was and that was it. That I had nothing else to offer. I also had the feeling that I wasn't allowed to fail. That if I failed or even struggled, I would be a burden on the people around me who were already preoccupied with other things and other people. And I just couldn't let that happen because that's not what a good girl does. So I just put on my blinders and I did what I thought I was supposed to do and what others expected of me. And I never once, not once, stopped and asked myself if that's what I wanted to do. Already at that age, I was just going through the motion of society's expectations. When I think back to those times, it's actually really sad that I didn't know how to listen to my gut and how to make decisions for myself that would actually make me happy. So I started my CPA and it was done in 4 modules at the time. And I will never forget the day that I received my grade for module 1. I needed a 60 to pass and I got a 61. Now I just told all of you how I went through school and through university getting good grades. So a 61 was a slap in the face for me. I had never in my life had such a low mark, and I cried the whole day. I thought that if I barely made it through module 1, that there was no way that I would pass the rest of it. I was so upset at what was actually a passing mark, as if everyone would know that I almost failed, and it would be a chip to my identity. But I picked myself up and I kept going. I passed the rest of my modules with slightly better grades, but I didn't enjoy any of it. I just kept telling myself that it would be worth it at the end. It felt prestigious to me to have letters to add at the end of my name. And it fit into the story of the good girl and the smart girl to have that prestigious career. Now, before I keep going, I just want to touch on the piece where I cried the whole day. And as I go through the rest of my story, you're going to see that crying is a theme for me. But that is something that I only developed in university. I would say that before then, anytime I had any big emotions, they would come out more as anger. And even that, it would be anger inside because being the quiet, good girl, I would not let any of that out. And in university, it started to be a little bit too much to keep those emotions inside, and crying became my outlet. It became the way that I let my emotions out. And for a long period of time, I really struggled to control my crying. It would come out anytime without me being able to stop it when I felt it coming up, which is not ideal when you are in a social setting or a professional setting or with other people around you. So let's get back to my CPA. After the 4 modules, there was a very demanding 3-day exam. And I remember people telling me, "Oh, don't worry, I know you'll pass." And I know they meant that from a good place, but to me, it was dismissing how tough this was and how hard I was working. And it would make my blood boil. But, like the polite and well-mannered girl that I was expected to be, I just smiled and said thank you. So results day for the final exam comes around, and I actually failed. I was obviously devastated because failure in my mind was something that I was not allowed to do. But I also felt like a weight was lifted off of my shoulders. Like maybe people would see that I wasn't quote unquote perfect and that there was more to me than just academics. Now, this is something that I've healed part of and still struggle through part of it. I do still have high standards, and I feel the need to tell you that I passed on my second attempt. I did end up earning my CPA, and that this is actually very common. So once my CPA chapter was done, it was time to start my real adult career. And so through the CPA, I was working full-time, and I didn't really enjoy the work that I was doing. So I left that job and I moved through a few different companies. And I eventually landed in one of the biggest banks in Canada in the finance department. And through the beginning of my career, I had struggled with these same feelings and emotions. I felt that I couldn't fail, that everything that I did needed to be perfect, and I was so afraid of failing. And that was the persona that I was putting on, that I was doing a great job, that I could be perfect, that I had these high standards. But inside, I always felt like I was doing a bad job. I never felt like what I was doing was good enough. And like people around me saw that I was doing a good job. So when I started at one of the biggest banks in Canada in the finance department, I finally had that internal feeling of doing a good job. I felt like my hard work was seen and appreciated and valued. And within about 10 months, I got promoted to manager. Now, I never envisioned myself being a manager. I never felt like it was part of who I was. I had the impression at that time that a manager or a leader came from within, and that you had to have that ingrained in you to be able to be that person. And I thought that that was a quality that I did not possess. So it goes without saying that I found that transition very difficult. I went from controlling my own work, which allowed me to keep that standard that I wanted, to needing to oversee all of my team's responsibilities, making sure that everyone meets their deadlines, that there are no mistakes because I can't fail, and that everyone was okay. I'm sure you've had the thought of if you want something done right, you should just do it yourself. Number one, that is not true. But I really wanted to do everything myself instead of teaching my teams tips and tricks and helping them to think for themselves and to grow and to learn. I remember my manager at the time telling me once, "You're going to have to learn to delegate or you'll go insane." And I just looked him straight in the eye and I said, "I think I'm already there. I'm already insane." I really started struggling with anxiety at that point, which I luckily never had until then. To be honest, I probably never tuned into my emotions enough to even be able to feel anxious before this time. I had many stressful times in my life, but this was different. I had stress before a big test or a big exam or something that I could relate the pressure to. But this was different. This was a constant pit in my stomach. I was always afraid of what was coming, even when things were seemingly good and there was nothing scary coming that I knew of. I was just always scared. I wasn't really sleeping and I was crying every day. I remember feeling so small and so unimportant. Like the true me didn't really matter to anyone because she was never let out. No one knew who she was. And all of this was pre-pandemic. So the whole crying every day, I did not have the luxury of doing that at home by myself where no one could see me. I was at the office with everyone else. And I just had to do my best to keep my emotions inside until I could get home and burst out crying. And on the really bad days when I couldn't keep it inside, I would hide in the bathroom, cry as quietly as I possibly could, only to go back out there and put on a brave face for my team. Now I knew that I couldn't keep going this way, that something had to change, but I didn't know what or how. Here I was with a really good job that a lot of accountants dreamed of, a great salary, working for a great organization. I have an amazing husband. We had the big house, the 2 dogs. On the outside, everything looked great. And I should have had everything that I needed to be happy and just keep going for the rest of my life. But I was miserable. I remember thinking, is this really it? I was maybe 30 years old at the time and thought, am I really going to hate my Monday to Friday? Only looking forward to the weekend, to maybe enjoy Saturday and then be full of anxiety on Sunday because of what's to come this week for the next 35 years. That didn't seem like a life worth living. And I can so feel those emotions again. I managed as best as I could for nearly 2 years without anyone knowing how bad I was struggling, aside from my husband and one friend at work. Now, that friend at work was so important because she was in it with me and could see daily how I was struggling and also understood the intricacies of our workplace and our workload. She had started dabbling in personal development herself and introduced me to a whole new world that I knew nothing about. I honestly don't know where I would be without her. With her help, I discovered books and podcasts and tools and techniques that really started my role to feeling better. I finally had something outside of work to focus some energy on, and I really needed that because at that time, work was consuming my life, and it was such a place of anxiety for me. So there was a long journey there, but I finally got stabilized at my job to a place where I wasn't crying every day and I wasn't crippled with anxiety, but I also wasn't enjoying my work. Through all of the reflecting that I was doing, I started to realize that I had taken on this identity as a kid that people gave me of being the smart one that didn't fail. And I had made all of my career decisions based on that. I thought that I needed the prestigious job that looked good on the outside and that it would fulfill me. But it simply didn't. I really started having the feeling of wanting to do something different, something that I enjoyed. But I had two major hurdles about that. The first was that what would people think of me if I completely changed my career? If I left behind everything that I had worked so hard for? And more importantly, what would I think of myself? Had I wasted all of this time and was it all for nothing? And could I accept not having the job and the career that looked great from the outside? And the second hurdle was that I had no idea what I wanted to do. I didn't know because I never gave myself the space to figure it out. I never listened to my gut. I just always did the right next step. So I started working on these two things. I needed to get better at making sure that I was happy and that I didn't care so much about what the people around me thought of me. After all, the people around you are not the ones living your life, and they're not the ones paying your bills. People will judge you no matter what, so you might as well do whatever makes you happy. But I needed to explore what made me happy. As I started to get better, I really found a passion for helping other people who have struggled or are currently struggling like I did. Other people who seem to have everything but aren't happy. Other people who want to do something different but don't know how or what that is or don't have the courage to try. So I'm here to tell you that there is life and happiness after thinking, is this really it? Through all of my healing, like I mentioned, I really found that passion for helping other women who have struggled or are struggling. Other women who want to live big lives but are scared. So that is how Empower Elle was born. I founded Empower Elle to help ambitious women who want to achieve big things, who want to unlock their full potential, and who don't want to play small. I'm here to help you do just that, but without the overwhelm, without the emotional burden, and without sacrificing your well-being. You can have it all. You deserve to have it all. and I'm here to show you how to have it all. Thank you so much for listening, for being here, and for being part of the Empower Elle journey with me. I cannot wait to see where it will bring us. So keep choosing yourself, your vision, and your values. That is real power. I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for tuning into the Empower Elle podcast. I hope today's episode inspired you and gave you practical insights to help you navigate your journey as an ambitious, high-achieving woman. Remember, every step you take towards building your confidence and embracing your full potential is a step closer to creating the life you truly desire. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your favorite platform. Your support helps us reach more women who are ready to step into their power and live their best lives. Don't forget to join our community on social media for more resources, tips, and inspiration. Until next time, lead with power and live with wellness. You are unstoppable.